Welcome to the Matt Waller Podcast, where we look at success at the intersection of technology, logistics, supply chain, retail, and CPG, also known as the retail value chain. I want to clarify that this podcast is distinct from my responsibilities as a professor in the Sam M. Walton College of Business. Nonetheless, it aligns with my aspiration to provide practical insights to professionals and business by showcasing companies and people that can enhance your ability to manage, lead, and strategize and market effectively in the retail value chain. Before we dive into today's exciting episode, I'd like to thank our sponsor, New Road Capital Partners. New Road invests in proven technologies, services, and products that serve unmet needs in the marketplace. They look for companies in supply chain and logistics, as well as consumer-oriented companies. For more information, go to newroadcp.com. I would also like to disclose that I am a strategic advisor to New Road. I'd also like to recognize podcastvideos.com for the services they provide for these podcasts. I'm very pleased with their services. And now, without further ado, let's get into the exciting episode. I have with me today Heather Nichols, who is the CEO of Acorn Influence, which is a new engine company. And today we're going to be talking about influencer marketing. And it's very interesting. I don't know a lot about it. I don't know a lot about the terminology. So by listening to this podcast, you'll learn with me. I literally asked her questions that came to mind as she was talking because I didn't know the answers. And she did a great job of explaining it. She has a tremendous background. You'll hear a little bit more about that in a moment. But you're going to learn about how Acorn makes sure that they have the optimal set of influencers for their brands. Heather talks about, I ask her a lot of really kind of detailed questions, but we also back up at some point and talk about it from a strategic perspective and how influencer marketing fits into the overall marketing mix. Very interesting part of the conversation. We also talk about the life cycle of a campaign and how that it exists within the influencer marketing realm. We talk about recruiting influencers, deploying them, measuring their effectiveness. If you're at all interested in marketing, you definitely need to listen to this. I think you'll enjoy it. Heather, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me on.
So, first of all, not everyone knows what influencer marketing agencies are. Mm-hmm. So would you mind speaking to that? What is an influencer marketing agency?
Well, we would call ourselves an influencer marketing solution provider. So within the New Engine enterprise, we are the solution for influencer marketing. So we employ technically small business owners who are content creators. We give them guidance. We're hired by the brands and the retailers to provide points of conversation around their product, launches, innovation, anything to build brand loyalty, brand equity, and give those influencers an opportunity to show their passion for the brands and the products and speak to their own audiences across social media platforms and promote those products.
I don't think I had heard of the idea of influencer marketing agency until maybe 15 years ago.
Right.
It's still fairly new, relatively.
It really is, and growing. I think.
Is it growing?
$4 billion industry, I think. At the end of the year.
I didn't know it was that big.
I think that was the latest that I read. So when I first entered the space for influencer marketing, it was in 2015 with a previous company. And we were really tasked with just defining what influencer marketing was. And in that day, it was thought to be mommy bloggers, right? They had blog posts. There wasn't all the social media platforms we have today. And it was really defined to head of household mom. We were trying to state the reason why you'd want to use influencer marketing. Now, today, you find yourselves, 9 years later, and you're saying, not just should you use influencer marketing, but how much of that budget should it take? Versus SEO or in-store or digital, how much should influencer play a part in your marketing mix?
It seems like a hard question to answer, I would think.
It would be, except that it's proven itself out to be very powerful, right? The proof is in the pudding. People go to social media platforms for discovery now, and it's shoppable commerce, it's shoppable content. And so it's a direct line back to retailers and online stores and points of conversion.
I know it works. There's no question. There's a podcast I listen to quite a bit called Huberman Lab. It's by this professor from Stanford named Andrew Huberman. And I've purchased many products because of his recommendation.
Yes.
I mean, he recommends momentous supplements. Well, I buy momentous supplements. He talked about this thing called Inside Tracker, where you get all of your blood work checked to the nth degree. And so many things he's recommended I've bought just because I really like his opinions and his ideas. But I'm curious now. I said, this is still fairly new, but now I'm aware of a number of companies that do this. What sets your company apart? What makes Acorn really different?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking. So we are celebrating our 10-year anniversary this spring.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. We've had quite tremendous growth in the last 4 years, about 400% growth. And so it's been an exciting ride.
400% growth?
Since 2020.
It must be difficult to find employees at that rate.
We're luckily, we have a great network here locally in Northwest Arkansas and through our agency partners and brands and clients. So our referral basis is quite strong. We have a beautiful culture that's been actually reinforced by New Engine, our enterprise parent company. We share values with them, and it really translates across our employees and it helps through the recruitment process. But it does. Growth brings its own set of unique challenges and problems. I think what sets us apart, there is a perceived low cost of entry in this space. People think that, you can manage influencers, recruit them, execute the campaigns, and it speaks like fairly simple to itself, right? Everybody uses influencer marketing in some capacity, social media. What we do very differently, and we've learned through 10 years of sequential learnings, is mastering recruitment, how to identify the right influencers, how to onboard them, how to prepare them for success, to speak to the brands and the products. We do that through an RFP process. Most influencer marketing solution providers have what I would call a job posting board. And that gives these small business owners, these influencers, an opportunity to raise their hand and participate, right? They're looking for ways to monetize their content calendar. What we're looking to do is to serve the brands and suppliers by providing them the right creators who will influence audiences to recreate content drive conversion. So we do this RFP process. We invite influencers to participate. And another point of differentiation is we go through an open network. What that means is we both have a network of our own of about 25,000 influencers, but we also tap into emerging voices. The one thing that's consistent and constant in this space is change and more people entering it at all the time. Different platforms, different types of content iterations and formats, if you will. So by looking at what's coming into the space, niche influencers, micro, nano influencers, we're creating new talent opportunities, right? And presenting those to brands and suppliers. And the more and more that they see micro and nano influencers perform well, the more opportunity we have to bring more people into the space and onboard them to our network. So we have our own network. We're not using the same influencers time and time again. There are some brands that like that to build the brand ambassadorship, if you will, and loyalty, but to be able to go out and recruit new ones into the space is very powerful. It's often very cost effective as well, right? It's before they have their big teams, their PRs, their agents, their lawyers, which is a lot of what the space is growing into as well. So we do that, and we also have a tech enablement through a portal, a proprietary portal. So it's three-way facing. It gives us the opportunity to execute internally. It gives the brands an opportunity to access campaign elements, approve, provide edits, feedback, decline. It also provides influencers a way to onboard to campaigns and to execute their content. So it is a very powerful tool that, again, tech-enabled for the execution of the campaign. But it is managed service. We do pride ourselves on premium white glove service. And we also set ourselves apart by the way we distribute our content. We have a product called Canopy. which kind of draws on the branding of Acorn, a canopy of trees, if you will, so that we have it all under one roof, a holistic solution, so that we have the organic content, but we have very specific routes of paid media distribution that's hyper-targeted. And we do that through also retailer media network partnerships. We are an agency partner within Walmart Connect, and that allows us to use the Trade Desk DSP, premium inventory, the most superior targeting you can find in the marketplace with Walmart Connect. And so that also helps drive success with our campaigns. We also provide content usage rights and perpetuity to the brands. I think a lot of competitors in the space might find that intimidating or that could hurt business. But what we find is it actually empowers the brands for their equity purposes. And it also does not cannibalize the opportunity for the brands to work with you because they always need relevant, fresh, and recent content. That also drives SEO as well, right? Robust, relevant content. So by giving them access to the content usage rights and perpetuity through our proprietary contracting process, they are getting the opportunity to elongate their investment, right? They can put that equity on their websites, their brand pages, their item pages, product pages, their CRM efforts. So it's a real nice collaboration for the brands, and I think that sets us apart. But we do have about a 95% retention rate with our clients, and I think that also speaks to the way we execute very seamlessly. We dedicate teams to each brand, so it's the same group of individuals on the client success team working with these brands, campaign out. So they very well know the brand Bible, if you will, the do's and don'ts in the lane, and the way we onboard and invest in these influencers so that they can bring their very best selves to the table and have authentic content that's created on the back end.
I want to go back. You've said some really good things there, and now I understand what sets you apart. But you mentioned retail media networks, and a lot of people don't even know what those are at this point. And so for those listening, it's just a way for companies to advertise on retailer property.
And offsite. So
you mentioned the Trade Desk.
It's a DSP, demand side platform. It is the partner to Walmart Connect. They developed that product together, and it allows that premium inventory that the Trade Desk has.
When you say inventory, you mean inventory of advertising space?
Ad placements. So digital display, display, mobile, CTV. So connected TV, perhaps it's a ad placement within Hulu streaming, right? Or CBS Sports, or it's on site.
Could be Instagram even. Right?
Well, correct. And Walmart Connect does provide that. We are only at this point in time using these retailer media networks and Walmart Connect specifically. New Engine is our hands-on keyboard, if you will. They are the digital marketing agency enterprise that
I see.
And so they are making those buys in collaboration with the leads at Walmart Connect, providing partnership with us and recommendations of audiences from their first-party data. So our team, with the brand's guidance of the type of audience and the type of consumers and shoppers they're trying to target, will inform us of those very necessary variables. We'll go to the Walmart Connect leads. We'll discuss with them in collaboration what the supplier is trying to accomplish. They'll make recommendations within their first-party data of who we should be putting our content in front of. So typically you'll see in these media buys branded assets, right? Like you see on any print page or digital website, on-site or off-site. The difference with what we're doing is we're taking creator content, influencer content, and we're putting it all in these inventory placements, display, on your device, and CTV. It's really a novelty to see influencer creator content on CTV.
When you say display, give an example of that.
So it might be a website you visit for the Weather Channel. An ad placement, on the side of the website, on the top, a banner placement, if you will, below the fold, above the fold, mobile, maybe within an app, an ad format within the app. Is it, a full display of the digital phone, or is it, a portion of the digital ad format? So we develop different creative iterations out of the creator's content and then place those creative iterations in different formats, be it your mobile device, display, websites, or, again, connected TV.
Now, forgive me for asking stupid questions, but I'm not an expert in this. So if a creator, let's suppose you've got a supplier that wants to use an influencer, you find an influencer for them. And then do you have that influencer create content for this specific purpose?
Yes.
Or do you use content they've already created?
It's a brand new campaign every time. It goes back to that relevancy and recency, right? And creating freshness. As you well know, these brands and suppliers create new products, new packaging, new innovation, new line extensions. So the benefit is really aligning on their key initiatives, their tent poles, the seasonality of what they're trying to accomplish, the different marketing initiatives that they're out to succeed. So what we do is we approach a campaign based on that brand's initiative. It's a flat budget. They come to us and say, this is our investment that we have to work with. We make a recommendation of how much of that is organic content of the influencer created, which you'll see as live post, right, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. And then we take those creative iterations and we have on the balance of that, paid media distribution of that budget. So then we distribute that content through those paid media bot spots. The good news for the brands is we are a customizable solution. That also differentiates us in the space. We're not a one-size-fits-all. So if someone would like to see more content, more influencers, we're certainly lessen the amount that's focused on paid. A lot of brands would like to see less influencers, less number of pieces of content, and we'll do more paid media distribution, getting those fewer pieces of content in front of greater audiences that are more targeted. So it's campaign to campaign, but the thing that also sets us apart is we guarantee deliverables. So we guarantee how many influencers on the back end of that investment, how many pieces of content, the number of engagements, the number of impressions. We're not giving a range. We're guaranteeing what they'll see on the back end of those campaign investment dollars.
So if a supplier hires you and you may find multiple influencers for them?
We will recruit more than what they need. We'll come to them with a curated list, if you will. Part of the benefit of a dedicated team is you get to know these brand marketers very, very well and what their specific likes and dislikes are. Some brands prefer long lists, curated lists of influencers to choose from. Some request that you just come with 2 or 3 extras, right? So if they want 10 influencers on the campaign, we may just come with 15 or we'll come with 20, depending on their desire. And then they'll review those influencers and provide feedback, approve or decline, and we'll recruit more if necessary. But what we've proven over and over again is a mastery in recruitment to be able to find those influencers that resonate and align with their brand and those voices that show a true passion for the product and the brands that they're wanting to drive conversion and sales on.
So a long time ago when all this started, you had bloggers. So someone
mommy bloggers.
I remember you used that term. So you had a mommy blogger that might be blogging about things she buys at the store.
There's a lot of recipes back then.
Recipes, yeah. I remember.
Very endemic, food and beverage.
And so back then, if I'm selling flour, certain brand of flour, then you would pick a mommy blogger that bakes things probably, right? Or am I wrong?
No, you would be right in the model that we have. Back when it first began, there was a lot of trust us, we've got it. We're going to provide you the list of influencers, and this is who we're going to use. We go with the model of no surprise, all delight. So we provide a curated list for those brands to look at. But yes, indeed, we give them brand guidelines. We give them the do's and don'ts, and then we rely on those influencers to create the magic sauce, if you will, the magic recipe of the authenticity of their voice. They know what their audience is looking for. They know what their audience will engage and participate in the content with. And there was a time, speaking back to the mommy blogger days, that brands were telling the audiences who they were. What's really fascinating is now these audiences are telling the brands who they actually are. And it's by way of how...
Say that again?
Yeah. So the audiences, if you choose the right influencer, you have an engaging audience, they're participating with the content. They're commenting on the content. They're liking, they're sharing. They're showing their own voice through their narratives on their comments. And so the brands are listening. And the brands are developing marketing initiatives and plans and ideas and ideation around what the audiences are telling them who they are, how they're using the products and brands. Whereas before, the brands would overscript, if you will, and come to the influencer provider like ourselves, and the influencers would say this, don't say this. It was more scripted. It was a heavier hand, if you will, by the brands. What they recognize now, 9, 10 years later, is that these influencers are very powerful if you leave them to do what they know to do best, which is give them the rules of the road and let them create the magic and let them create the content and the narrative and storytelling. They know their audiences.
I see. So it used to be that the brands were dictating a lot of what they wanted. A lot
more dictation, yes.
And now they're saying, we're going to trust you. You know your audience. Mm-hmm. You do what you think is best for this.
They'll see a more powerful content and higher quality content if they let the influencers do what they do best.
It makes sense.
And these are all artists, if you think about it. They're small business owners and they're creators. All creators are not all influencers. Influencers are creators, but they're not necessarily all influencers. Say that again. So creators may be influencers, but they may not influence.
Right, yeah.
But all influencers are creators.
I see. It may be varying degrees of creativity, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Many people may not even see it as being very creative, but
they're influential.
Yeah, they're creating something.
Right. But they're creating points of storytelling that the brands are sitting up and taking note. And being agile in this space, being very turnkey, really maximizes the opportunity of what you're seeing out in the social media platforms. What are the conversations? What are the use case scenarios for these brands and these products? How are these families and head of households and individuals using the product? In what ways is it creating less chaos in their lives and making their lives easier? Capitalize on that, right? What's going on in culture today? Be very turnkey. So when you have a trusted partner in the influencer space that you know can take your guidance and knows your brands, the brand Bible, if you will, very familiar with it, the legalities of getting live with a campaign, you can activate on that information and those trends and those insights very quickly.
So when there's a lot of phenomena going on right now that are probably not new, but they seem new to me. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
There is a new president in Argentina, 10 weeks old.
Okay.
He's doing something that no president's ever done before of a major country. He has a PhD in economics, and he's applying economic theory to Argentina. And they need it because they've got lots of problems. They've had inflation for a while. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I found it very interesting, and I've been trying to follow it since he was elected 10 weeks ago. But it's hard because he doesn't speak English. Well, there's some guy in the Netherlands on social media who has started reporting on this guy. Okay?
I've missed this.
Yeah, so but there's a lot of things like this. So he started reporting on this new president, and he's got, I don't know, many followers, maybe 50. He went from nothing to like 50,000 or something. I may be wrong about that.
We call him a power middle.
What's that?
We'd call him a power middle influencer if he has 50 to 250,000 influencers.
That's called the power middle. I want to come back to that.
Okay.
So this guy, I'm following him. I don't know him from Adam. I may or may not even like him if I know him. But I can't find anyone else that's giving me the information I want about this new president. And he'll sometimes use AI to even take his speeches and translate them into English. And so he's got all these people following him now, and all he does is write about what's going on. And he's in the Netherlands, But
wild.
He is an influencer. I don't think he knows it. I mean, he's out there. I mean, he probably does to some degree, but he's not leveraging it at all. But it doesn't. Is it true that there's more and more people like that are doing kind of very
creators?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very niche.
Yeah, very, very much so. And they're very powerful in their engagement of their audiences because those are very loyal, passionate followers of their content.
It might be a small group.
Right, but they're active.
But they're very active. They follow them every day.
They're participating.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, influence has a different definition depending on the industry and the sector and what you're doing. And going back to those mommy bloggers, it was recipes. It was not so much discovery as it was tutorials, if you will.
Yeah.
When did TikTok start? You had a lot of people that were on that platform just trying to entertain. When COVID began, I think I was guilty of doing a couple with my own teenagers. So it was a entertainment platform. But now, what is TikTok? It's a discovery tool. just as much as you Google something, these generations are now going to TikTok to find and discover solutions, products, ideas, inspiration. And so this shoppable content is more influential, if you will, because it actually converts into sales. But they're still creators and they're still influencing their audience with their storytelling and their narratives and their perspectives. It's just what is the commodity, if you will, the outcome.
Well, that's a question I have.
Mm-hmm.
Can you at times use influencers who are creating content that is not conceptually related to the product that you're wanting to have them influence, or is that, how's that work?
I think so. I mean, it's really the brand's appetite for risk-taking too, right? You have some brands out there that will lean into that and will find great success.
Really?
And they have to take the good with the bad, right? This is a human business. These are humans, and there's the ability to see things go sideways sometimes. It's how do you prepare for that? So at Acorn, we're like, well, there's not just a plan A, B, and C. We go to plan Z. We've had enough experience and enough exposure that we can set these influencers up success and prepare the brands to lean into that some. Take some risk, trust these influencers, but trust us in the way that we recruit them and we set them up for success.
So on the one hand, it makes intuitive sense to me,
Mm-hmm.
what you were saying about, let's let the influencer kind of run with the ball. Mm-hmm. They know their audience and their audience loves them. So,
That's right.
Let's let them be authentic and not tell them what to do. But on the other hand, Acorn Influence has worked with, you have 25,000 influencers in your network
In the
today,
network.
but you've worked with many more over the years.
Yes.
Right.
Of our open network.
And some things work better than others.
Mm-hmm.
How do you communicate that to the influencers?
Well, it's a learning process for them too. If they've worked with us numerous times, they, like I said before, they know the brand really well. They know the brand's appetite for risk, and they know what the brand is trying to communicate, what the affinity for the product is. I think what we do really well is set those influencers up for success and knowing what their lanes are, right? What they can and cannot say. So the recommendation would be, this is a new product launch. This is a new item. These are the product attributes that the brand's trying to convey. How will you do that in the seasonality of back to school? Think about your audience. Think of who the consumer is. Think of who the shopper is. Think about how you're going to drive conversion and really highlight that brand and that product in the most appealing way. And do it with your own voice and knowing what the audience will respond to.
So there used to be these mommy bloggers, but now there's still blogs that are quite influential. I mean, I read some blogs that have no other content. They're blogs.
I don't think people realize when they're reading a blog anymore.
I think you're right.
I don't think they know it's a blog, but it is.
But there's a lot of it out there. There's some people that I think they prefer to write a blog. Maybe it's like their natural strength.
Right, the storytelling.
And it's good to read. I mean, some of them are really amazing, actually. But then there's others that, they may have a, YouTube channel. They've got podcasts. They've got blogs. They've got other things. Lots of
Cross-platform.
Cross-platform. Yeah. But is there some optimality in combining these things, or does it really depend?
I think it depends on the category a lot, because if you're talking about beauty bloggers, right, you're going to have a lot of Instagram and TikTok because those are video format.
Makes sense.
Right. Short form video, tutorial, how to apply the makeup. If you have some more tactical use type products, not more inspirational type products, it might be more static imagery, right, to convey the messaging, especially if you're trying to, communicate about a value offer, right? Or you're trying to drive to a destination and you want to not lose the audience. These consumers and shoppers certainly go from touch point to touch point before sometimes they go back to absolutely convert. But it does matter where your audience lives. So if you're talking about beauty, that there's a lot of that discovery going on Instagram and TikTok. You're going to do short form video format. Not everyone who's on TikTok is actually in Instagram and vice versa. Facebook isn't really where Gen Z is living, right? So you want to think about who's the buyer, who's the consumer, and where they're living and the type of content they want to consume. So we will have a mix, if you will, as you would have a marketing mix of out-of-home, digital, print, influencer. We're going to have a mix of platform and types of content and creative iterations. And we'll test those formats too and those iterations in the digital. And what's so great is you have this feedback loop that continues, right? You see how the content's performing organically. And by that, we mean it's the initial post. There's no paid media behind that. They're just posting onto their platform and to their handle, if you will. Then we take that content and we put it in a digital media buy, be it in the paid social media platforms, or then we take it to the trade desk and put it in one of those digital media buys. And they inform one another of how they're performing. And we make optimizations across the board, organic, social media, and trade desk, based on those triggered responses. So it's a feedback loop, a continuous feedback loop of optimization so that we are putting the right type of content in front of the right audience at the right time in the right place.
Interesting. I was reading a blog. I think it was a blog. No. I was reading a blog that was recent, and I couldn't even tell you where it was. It wasn't something I read normally, but the topic caught my attention. And what they were basically saying was, since Elon Musk took over Twitter, and now it's called
X, formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, a lot of advertisers, big advertisers, quit advertising, right? Mm-hmm. But this guy was saying, for small players now, it's the best.
A lot of share of voice.
Yeah. And so basically what he was showing, he had some data from his own material content, where he was using Twitter to drive traffic somewhere else where he has his material. Mm. And he said, 4 years ago, I would have spent a fortune and nothing would have happened. Now I spend $100 and I'll get a bunch of traffic because there's less competition.
Right.
This starts getting very complicated in my mind, I would think, because it's so dynamic, trying to keep up with that. And also the popularity of certain people ebbs and flows. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you see that as well?
Absolutely. One of my favorite success stories, one of my favorite anecdotes, we were working with a very well-known yogurt brand. It was back to school timing, and they had an appetite for new emerging voices, right? In TikTok, recipe producers. This was back when TikTok was just starting to turn into how-to versus entertainment. This influencer on TikTok was fairly new to the platform, didn't have a large following. We gave him the brand do's and don'ts, said that they're looking for a recipe, support back-to-school timing, this new flavor. This individual, he did a great recipe tutorial. He made it. It was very entertaining. It was short-form video, music. Again, not much following, very cost-effective. We were able to put quite a few influencers on the campaign for this budget, right, and get those guaranteed deliverables. Hold, I'm eating breakfast one morning, watching the Today Show. There he is. He's blown up in the time the period of our campaign was live. He's gone from a new voice on the platform to this Today Show superstar now, right? And so the brand was so excited to use him again. They wanted to use him for holiday. Well, guess what's happened in that 6-week time span?
His price went up.
His price has gone up significantly. He has a PR person. He has an agent. He has a lawyer. He has a team. He has an entourage. So we went back to the brand. We said, you could, for that budget, use him again, or you could let us find you 10 more people just like him. Cost effective, more pieces of content, more ideas, more recipes, more distribution opportunities, more creative iteration opportunities. So it really is fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It changes very quickly.
Now, a lot of your customers, clients are CPG, right?
The majority of our business right now, vertical-wise, is CPG. We have worked in the QSR, quick service restaurant vertical. We've done pharma, which is really fascinating. You want to have a lot of trust and credibility.
Well, I bet there's a lot of legal issues there.
Completely. And I think it speaks to the expertise of our team, being able to maneuver and navigate those lanes. And we've done some auto. We've done some tourism. But the majority of our business right now, as it stands, is CPG. Now, it's not all retailer-focused CPG. We're doing a lot of brand upper funnel marketing campaigns.
Brand upper funnel. So you're trying to just make people aware of the brand?
Education, awareness, and site trial, not necessarily retailer affiliated. And then you go mid-funnel engagement, you're driving and citing trial more aggressively, and then the lower funnel, which is conversion. So we're actually integrating the retailer and the retailer language and affinity for retailer and that bottom funnel opportunity. So we'll go look for influencers who do a lot of work in the Walmart space. They're fluent in the language of Walmart. They understand the layout of the box. They understand how to do the pickup, how to do the delivery service. They use the app. They are fluent in Walmart, right? So we'll go contract specifically for those brands and those suppliers that are looking to drive conversion at Walmart. The flip side, we might do that in drug with CVS or Walgreens. We have a great mastery in being able to find and recruit influencers based on their retailer affinity. Nobody's retailer agnostic. Everyone's retailer agnostic, if you will. Sorry. So there are some influencers, though, that are more loyal to some retailers than others.
I don't follow a lot of these people, but on Instagram, and I'm not going to remember who it is exactly, they talk about things in Sam's Club.
Yes.
Because the number of SKUs in a Sam's Club is small. It's like 4,000 to 6,000. At least it used to be back in the good old days. I think that's still true. But there's a smaller set of SKUs, and some of them rotate.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes in and finds like really amazing things that may or may not be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, discovery.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it interesting. Mm-hmm. And she'll compare it to other retailers sometimes too, and say, here's how much better of a price this is, or can you believe they're carrying this brand? And on and on and on.
Quickly, before it goes away. Get there. Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I follow them myself. I have a family of 4 children. So if there's a really good deal on a seasonal item that I know it's going to fit the bill, I love the alert. Thank you for the notification. I'll be there shortly.
Yeah, exactly. But, I could see with Walmart why it would be important because, you can go in the store,
mm-hmm.
you can buy online, pick up at store, you can buy online, deliver to your home, buy on delivery into your home. Mm-hmm. You can even use drone delivery.
Right.
When drone delivery first started in Rogers, I think we were one of the first areas to have it. And Drone Up was doing it. And I needed some produce for a recipe
mm-hmm.
that I was making. And so I placed the order and through drone delivery.
Okay.
And it came like within less than 20 minutes, I think.
Amazing.
But I went outside and videoed it when it came over. Mm-hmm. And then it came down to like 80 feet, and then it dropped it down.
Wow.
And then it went back up, the line did. And I went out and picked it up. My wife was filming this. And just for fun, my area is supply chain management, and so I posted this on LinkedIn because I thought all my logistics and supply chain friends will find this interesting. And sure enough, within a short period of time, there were like 700 comments. And
you're an influencer, Matt.
Yeah, exactly. But people really found that interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And, so the reason I bring this up is I'm trying to think, people found that interesting, not me interesting. You see what I mean? Yes. And that's the only time I've ever posted anything that had that kind of volume that I can remember. So how do you sometimes distinguish that when you're looking at influencers? Do you know what I'm saying?
The informative versus the entertaining?
Yeah, or also, are they a one-hit wonder or maybe just a short interval?
Well, you're going to look at their engagement rate. So what is their following in their typical posts, their typical content posts? What type of engagement does it get versus how large is their audience?
I see.
So you're looking at engagement rate. And then now we get to look at measurement of ROAS, right?
What?
ROAS, return on ad spend. So when you're thinking about what type of placement you're looking to do or what type of messaging you're trying to drive. So in your case, the drone, you were messaging the efficacy of drone delivery. We love to work on behalf of Walmart and talk about the membership services, right? And delivery and pickup and in-store. You can now measure how our content is performing in different ad formats based on the return on ad spend of conversion.
Because you can see where the traffic came from.
Well, you can see what the return on ad spend was for delivery conversion versus in-store versus pickup.
I see.
So now you can tailor make your messaging to, highlight the benefits of delivery versus just being in store, or pickup versus delivery in store. So you can be very prescriptive in the content and the storytelling based on this wonderful data and insights that we can get from Walmart Connect, and how that those digital ad placements are performing based on if it's in-store delivery or pickup.
I'm still surprised how many. I'm well connected into the CPG world, and we both are. Mm-hmm. For those listening, we live in Northwest Arkansas, right. But I'm surprised how many even like team leaders aren't very familiar with retail media networks and even the marketing side of their business. Does that surprise you?
Yes and no. I think the proliferation of retail media networks and the growth and how many are coming onto the scene. So yeah, I think that it's by necessity they're becoming more familiarized with it. But as far as the power of it, they haven't probably fully leveraged it.
Yeah, that's really what I'm referring to.
Yeah, I think the ability to maximize the data. So, again, our performance and what we're seeing as results is specific to our content and the performance of our content in those placements. There's so much more opportunity within these retailer media networks for SEO and on-site, as you were saying. We're not placing ads in our content on-site. This is all off-site through the trade desk. So there's so much more to be garnered and learned from powerful targeting like this that it's going to be interesting to see.
Do you ever, do brands ever hire you and say, okay, we want these, so you present them with some options, like say, we want these 3 influencers. Mm-hmm. And so you run with both those influencers. Do you ever do statistical tests to see which ones are making the biggest difference?
So performance marketing, if you will, affiliate, that works really well in that DTC, direct-to-consumer space. We do understand which ones are performing better based on how we score their performance post-campaign, what was their engagement rate, what was the performance of the campaign overall, if we can measure their content, as we do with some retailer media networks, and the ROAS that digital buy performs at. But as far as direct to consumer, those affiliate links within New Engine, we have an affiliate service that will directly measure that conversion, right? Based on that performance of that influencer, one-to-one, if you will.
Because the shopper sees it and clicks on it.
And goes to the point of purchase on the consumer site.
And so all that information.
Right. It's closed loop, if you will, right? Yeah. Which is what we're getting through Walmart Connect as closed loop attribution, ROAS, performance measurement. Now, if we're not able to measure that through the retail media network and those partnerships, then we're looking at those online metrics. What was the engagement rate? How did that influencer perform as far as engagement of their audience? I think marketers today are very well aware that it's a holistic view, the campaign performance. And going back to your starting point of they come with 3 influencers, today's marketers will definitely come to us and say, we'd love to use these 3 influencers. And also, could you find us more like them in case those aren't available? They're not cost effective. Or, as we find oftentimes, there's more fraud in those following of those big influencers.
What do you mean?
Bot traffic, BOT, BOUGHT.
Bot traffic.
BOT, bot.
Yeah. Oh, bot.
Or bot traffic. So they're buying these influencers, these mega celebrities are buying audiences to make their numbers seem higher and their reach more grandiose, if you will. So we're scraping those influencers and those mega celebrities oftentimes and saying, this isn't cost effective. You think you're getting 1 million followers. Well, 80% of those might be overseas. Are you really advertising to Eastern Europe right now? Or are you going for U.S. shoppers and consumers? So let us scrape that audience to make sure and vet it for elimination of bot and bot.
So some of these celebrities do they hire a service that does this for them?
Yeah, there's all sorts of ways out there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's not a space we play in. No.
Well, the reason I ask is again, going back to when Elon Musk bought Twitter, he started getting cold feet after he'd already agreed to buy it because he found out that a lot of
bots.
Yeah, a lot of bots. A lot of it wasn't real.
BOTs.
Interesting.
And so it's been very fascinating to go to some of our best brand partners who are getting this maybe top-down pressure to activate celebrities. And then we go vet and scrape their audience. And we're like, well, your CPM for this influencer in actuality is much higher than you are expecting. And instead of doing this one celebrity, let's go with this other celebrity that we know to have a real audience, and perhaps with that same budget, go get 5 more power middles,
Okay, I want to ask you about this. So you've got a way of designating different levels.
Segmenting it.
Tell me how that works.
So we would have what we call nano micro influencers. As you mentioned earlier, there's very niche influencers that are speaking to a smaller audience, or they've not yet grown their audience to a certain level. And then you get over that 10,000, 20,000 mark, and you get closer to that 50 to 250,000 followers on a platform. We call that your power middle. So they're very powerful in that they have a nice balance of large audience, but to a still higher level of engagement versus your mega, macro, or celebrity influencers who may have millions of followers, but the engagement rate is very, very low, right? So it's a balance of what you're trying to accomplish. What is a marketing initiative? What are you trying to actually do? Are you going for reach and scale because of brand awareness, that upper funnel tactic? Or are you going for something more in the middle funnel, engagement rate, but also want to drive conversion? So maybe get that power middle and really make sure those influencers are aligned to a retailer affinity that's strong and can speak to the retailer very well. And we measure that for lower bottom funnel as well. I think what's great about influencer is a bridge, right? A lot of people think of digital ad tech, and that's a space I used to live in as well. And they think of, I like to say, spray and pray. Get as much of those branded assets out as far and wide as possible. Pray that you find the right audience and they convert. The benefit of influencer is you can reach large-scale audiences, right, with these mega celebrity influencers. And you can also drive conversion lower end with some higher engaging audiences and very smart paid prescriptive targeting. Your first-party targeting with your retailer media. So influencer is a beautiful bridge between the upper and lower funnel.
So you mentioned that Acorn provides full usage rights and perpetuity to the client.
With the caveat, of course, those big mega celebrities, we might have a premium price that they dictate. But overarching, the majority of our campaigns and our contracting process is proprietary to us. We've worked with those influencers to negotiate and contract usage rights.
So, you were talking about organic growth versus paid growth, right? So, if an influencer, you've hired an influencer to work with a brand, if it's a part of their process, their normal process to allow for organic, maybe on some channels and others paid on other channels, do you
it makes both.
Do you influence what they do in that regard, or you let them?
Probably by natural consequence of our selection of them, right?
Oh, so you're looking at what they did in the past.
Right. We're looking for a ratio of organic to paid content because no audience wants to see the influencer that they're following do nothing but paid sponsor content throughout their content calendar. So that's when we go back to this small business owner entrepreneurial mindset, right? They're looking at their content calendar. How are they going to monetize that and maximize the opportunity so they don't lose their audience? And they also have brands wanting to participate with them because you also, other than beauty, it's really about exclusivity, right? You don't want a diaper brand mentioning having the influencer mention the competitive diaper brand the week before. You want that mom to be loyal to your diaper brand, right? Whereas beauty, people go follow that beauty influencer and they're expecting to see lots of different products and lots of different iterations of different cost points of products, right? So exclusivity is not as important as it is perhaps diaper. So we're looking at the ratio of organic to paid, exclusivity of not mentioning competitive brands, loyalty to a retailer. If it's Walmart, they certainly don't want to see that influencer speak to a competitive retailer with great frequency.
I would think, like in a store, for example, in a grocery store, some products are impulse items, like Snickers candy bars.
Right.
The more of them you have at check stands, the more people buy, right? But there's other products on the other extreme, like Similac. You could have Similac at every check stand, and you're not going to sell more because people are going to the store because they've got a baby to feed.
Necessity.
Yeah, they're looking for Similac. But there's a lot of things in between those two extremes.
Right.
And so I would imagine that influencers work better somewhere in the middle there.
You'd be surprised. They work well across the box.
Is that right?
Yeah. We've done some really exciting campaigns for like Exxon, road trips. It's about how does that product, that brand make your life easier or take out the friction, bring more quality of life. So you take an Exxon product and you talk about summer road trips and vacations, right? You think about OTC, allergy medicine, you think about hiking. The content can be very robust and very entertaining and engaging because of the proximity to the product and the need state.
The need what?
The need state. So you're going to need more allergy medicine when you're outdoors hiking for a summer camp for a week, right? So you're not necessarily talking about the product attributes of that allergy medicine, but you're talking about how it enhances your camping trip.
Right.
Because of the need state of keeping your allergies at bay.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So the content is really, this is where the influencer matters because their creativity and their artistry, their craft, really brings that product to life and makes a use case for it, incites trial, maybe incites a aspirational lifestyle.
A company, a brand comes to you. Let's just take an example of a consumer packaged goods company, since we all love that here. A consumer goods company comes to you and they're wanting an influencer, but they've got a whole marketing mix to deal with. So how does this fit into the broader marketing mix?
The one thing I love about influencer most of all is its flexibility to fulfill the need for marketers, right? Because you're creating content. And how can that content be used? Well, it could be used in promotional efforts. Say you're doing Ibotta or Shopkick or any other type of value or loyalty redemption. You could use that content in the placement of those apps, right, to drive those promotional type tactics. You could use the content on in-store signage. You could use it on your packaging. You could use it on your CRM efforts. So one of the things we really enjoy is understanding the marketer's goal and objectives. What are they already planning to do? And how can we ideate with them how else this content can be used? The equity and the value of that content goes further than just the social media platforms. We've already proven it with our Canopy product by putting that content in digital media placements. How about taking that content and putting it in your print ad? How about taking that content and thinking about it from an audio perspective? You're a creator, you're an influencer, you're creating your podcast and audio, and there's opportunity as a content audio host to also influence and talk about brands and products. So the line item for influencer marketing could actually be content. It could be promotional. It could be digital. It could fulfill a lot of different budgetary.
Interesting. So I would guess that you would probably have to coach a little bit some of your clients.
Love the brainstorming. Yeah. Tell us what else you're doing. Let's maximize your investment in influencer because of the content usage rights we're negotiating on your behalf, and you can use those again. Then where else can we put this content that's going to drive engagement and more conversion opportunities? That's what we really loved about getting into the CTV space. I was listening in on a panel with a CMO in the entertainment space. And I asked the question, have you thought about influencer content in CTV? Had not considered it. Hadn't thought about whether it was relevant or would it be powerful in the CTV streaming premium inventory placements like Hulu. Well, now if you look at CTV, you'll see a lot more vertical type video formats in those advertising spots. It's not just horizontal, right?
Yeah, so
not typical linear TV horizontal placement.
Right. So when you say vertical, you mean like
TikTok or Instagram, right? But what we were doing is we were going to the influencers on the dawn of this, if you will, and saying, okay, we're going to have you create a TikTok vertical format ad, piece of content. But then we need you to create a raw asset and make it horizontal, like a YouTube spec, if you will, so we can use it in CTV. Well, now CTV is adopted and adapted to vertical placements of video within these digital media buys. But what we found is CTV, while expensive, drives a really considerable ROAS. And we've proven that through
considerable what?
Return on ad spend. And that's been measured with the likes of Walmart Connect of our content. And we do a CTV buy with that targeting, and we can see that return on ad spend based on that content and that digital buy. So CTV has been very exciting for the fact that that's not a place that influencer content was living previously. We've been investing in that. The brands and suppliers have seen success. They're coming back for it. It is a higher CPM, but it still drives
CPM,
cost per impression.
Okay.
So when you look at digital media buys or digital ad tech, a lot of the measuring stick, if you will, is how much is that going to cost me on a CPM basis? How many per 1,000 impressions is the dollar cost, right? We've gotten away from that, thankfully, in the influencer space. People realize it's not a spray and pray tactic. You should be more thoughtful and targeted and look at engagements, perhaps a cost per engagement. What we provide is a flat rate model, which is inclusive of those content usage rights, all of our agency service fee, our provider fee of management, recruitment, execution, the investment in the influencers, the proprietary portal. It all comes as one cost, right? And we guarantee those deliverables. We're going to guarantee you 200,000 engagements and 4 million impressions based on this budget, making those numbers up.
Right.
But they know what they're going to get on the back end. So if we continue to innovate and invest in different types of formats for the content and different iterations, influencer continues to be agile and flexible to meet these marketer mix needs, more opportunity for them to put the content in more places. So it's not just about that CPM anymore because now you've used it at point A, B, and C along the purchase path.
Couple of questions about the influencers. So you've got 25,000
in our network.
In your network, right?
And we go out of network almost every campaign as well.
Because there's
We're
always
using
new
millions.
opportunity.
Right. Absolutely.
So, but in that, say the 25,000, I would think that like probably is the 80-20 rule, does it apply there? In terms of how much business they're doing, or is it
I think so. I mean, you're going to have more influencers in your network. It's demand and supply, right? The more brands we work with, the more campaigns we're executing, the more influencers we can give work to, right? The more influencers we can employ. And the more those influencers are going to stay loyal and work with us because we're providing them a consistent basis of business and opportunity. So yes, there's going to be some that we use more often because there are some brands that like the brand ambassador approach. I want these same influencers used year round, and I want to pulse them out and have them create content dependent on the seasonality or dependent on the SKU or the line extension. And then there's brands that want fresh faces and fresh voices and fresh content at every campaign initiative. And they also probably have a lot more variety in their SKUs, in their product lines, right? So there is such a variety that we really pride ourselves on customizing to the brand's needs. And that sets us apart in the marketplace as well. Giving that collaboration and that handshake with the brand that, you come to us and tell us what your need is. We're a very premium managed service. We're going to meet you where your need is.
And then the second question I had that came to my mind about the influencers is, I would think that, especially some of your best, take the top 10% best. They could probably learn from one another, couldn't they?
They definitely do.
They do? How do they do that?
Well, we've brought influencers in for specific brands and what we call a brand immersion, if you will. We bring them all into a room with the brand managers from headquarters, and it's a knowledge share opportunity. Here's what we're going to tell you about the brand. Now let's ideate as a group in a room. How would you storytell this? How would you speak to the product attributes, the effectiveness of the product, the flexibility of the product, the use case scenarios? And they listen and they hear from each other about how they would approach their storytelling. And it's just like anything else, Sometimes I'm not the most creative person, but I can steal ideas really well. So it's beneficial to all. And we really do work to invest in these influencers. We do webinars when we onboard them. So they're, working in a group setting too as well. If they've all been chosen for a campaign, And we have an account manager, if you will, that will walk them through the process on a webinar and through the campaign and the brand's guidelines. And then we can look at other ways we can help them through, photography and tools and writing and prompts. And I think what's really interesting, and not to use the buzzword too heavily here, but AI, right? And how is AI going to impact this space? And I think what's going to be really beneficial to influencers and what we should be embracing is it will democratize the space.
It will what?
Democratize the space. Because you have these mega macro celebrity influencers that have resources that these newer entrepreneurs, if you will, don't necessarily have access to, right? They don't know what is always performing best. They don't have the hands-on tools to do the analytics or to have the best quality photography necessarily. You have a product or a tool like AI, and all of a sudden they can produce and create quality content or have predictive analytics to help them create content that speaks to the audience, as well as these mega macro celebrities that have teams that are supporting them and more resources.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's a democratizing tool. It shouldn't be something we're afraid of. It should look at it as a volume producing opportunity. More content creative iterations, and more influencers entering the space, which is beneficial to the brands and providers like ourselves as well.
Heather, would you mind explaining the concept of the life cycle of a campaign?
Absolutely. So a brand will come to us with their campaign goal and objectives for a certain flight of time. Let's just take Halloween, right? This product is their hero product, if you will. They have this budget, this flat rate budget. They're looking for influencers between power middle all the way up to macro. And they love a 60-40 split, if you will, of organic to paid media. 60% of their budget going to organic influencer content creation, 40% of their budget going to the distribution of the paid media. So we'll take those guidelines, the RFP from the brand, if you will. We'll go to our team, the team that's dedicated to that brand that works with them consistently and dependably every time. And they will go start the recruitment process. They will go invite influencers, RFP only, to come participate in what we call a pitch back. And I think this is very interesting, and I don't see this in the space at all. It is a service mark for us, the pitch back, if you will, and that they come and they present their thought starters, their ideas, these influencers. Well, you're trying to promote this candy at Halloween. Here's my idea, my thought on how I would narrate that and storytell that. Then we have a volume of different influencers that we've curated a list. We go back to the brand. We say, not only is here is your influencer, but here's their thought starter, their pitch back, how they would approach the content. It's not the final format of what that content would be, but it's the thought starter. Now the brand not only has influencers to look at, but they have a variety of different storytelling prompts so that they have an idea of how they could accomplish the goal and objective of their campaign. It won't be necessarily the same recipe 12 times, right? Or the same entertainment hosting, if you will, 12 times, same variation of that. So then we take that content, their approval, and we go back to those influencers and we say, this is a great thought starter. Here's the feedback from the brand. Here's what they'd like to see more of, what they'd like to see less of. They create the content. All of this they upload into our portal. The brands come in, they review that content. They may provide edits. We welcome those edits. We then manage that execution, go back to the influencer, facilitate those edits. Sometimes it's straight to approval. Sometimes the brand, back to your 80-20 rule, sometimes it doesn't resonate the way that what brand thought. Again, it's the eye of the beholder. This is art. It's very subjective at times. So then those influencers make those content edits, those revisions, or they're approved. We take that content, we tell the influencers go live, go post it. We look at how that content's performing organically. We start making those creative iterations out of those assets into ad formats on paid social media or back into the trade desk and those digital programmatic buys. And then we start triggering optimizations based on the responses to that content in all of those formats. So it's a really omni-channel approach. It's very holistic. So now you're getting all under one roof, your organic, your digital media buying, your content creation, CTV, if you will, display, mobile, all the things. And we're looking at that and informing those optimizations. And then at the back end of the campaign, we look at how the campaign performed, what were the resonating narratives, if you will, what formats perform best, where should we go next time? Do we stay in TikTok? Did that perform better than we expected?
Did Instagram? Was an Instagram reel better? Was it short form video better? And then we make those recommendations back to the brand, and it informs us of the next campaign setup. So my career history, 12 years ago, I was an entrepreneur myself. I had a family magazine here in Northwest Arkansas, so voice a writer for the paper, a hometown columnist, and I got recruited by Time Inc. To be their client solutions provider. So I was working behalf of Time Inc. and their lifestyles magazines. So All You, Southern Living, Coastal Living, Real Simple, all those print ads, right? Started in the print space. So I was privy to the in-store application of digital of marketing, shopper marketing at the time. I then went to digital ad tech, which at the time was just display, right? There wasn't CTV. No one was talking about mobile devices. It was just what was the digital ad inventory on any given website. Then I was recruited to an influencer company, Collective Bias, now known as Inmar, and I worked on their behalf to run their sales team locally and help develop their brand business here within the shopper marketing space. And then I started working for a global digital ad tech company called Ogre, which was primarily just working with in-app placements and digital ad tech buys. So working directly with publishers and the ads that would show up in those apps specific to those publishers. I then had the opportunity to come back to influencer, and I found it to be more engaging for me, more career satisfaction, less transactional than digital ad tech, where I love the insights and analytics and the whole process of that space. Having content and my background from content production myself, I really found that it resonated to the storytelling aspect of influencer marketing. So that's where I am, and this is where I'll stay as long as they'll have me. Acorn itself, as an influencer marketing, if you think of an oak tree and the thousands and thousands of acorns it produces and drops a year, and the tough exterior of an acorn, right? And the seed and the germination of that acorn and the sapling it produces, it's like word of mouth marketing, right? That your influencer, this sturdy oak tree, if you will, and all the pieces and touch points of content it produces, and the ability for that to germinate and create and pollinate further with their audiences. It makes sense that Acorn is the producer of content and pollination of ideas and influence and content. And then our Canopy product, which is our distribution strategy for the media of the influencer content, again, that overarching holistic approach. So you have an opportunity to have it all under one roof.
If you're finding value in this podcast, we greatly appreciate your support by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Additionally, following us on Apple and Spotify and leaving up to a 5-star review would be immensely helpful. We welcome any feedback or questions related to the podcast, as well as suggestions for further topics and guests. You can leave your comments on our YouTube channel, and rest assured that I will read each and every one of them. Please also take a moment to check out our podcast sponsors, as they play a critical role in keeping this podcast running. For more information on specific topics, timestamps, or links to articles mentioned during the podcast, head over to mattwallerpodcast.com.